Hello. Welcome to another Sunday reading. I am really looking forward to sharing the numerology this morning. As I was downstairs doing my mental math, I came up to the number 34. So we're at a 34 day. That's also a 7. So I went and flipped through. Honestly, card 34 was super preachy about like certain political standpoints when it comes to birth, and they're not ones that I particularly want to broadcast. I looked into 7, and it's the opposite. The card's called freedom. So I felt drawn to that. I want to get into that card, but I also felt called to visit Devotions by Mary Oliver. This is Bible status as far as I am concerned. As far as I'm concerned, this is Bible status. This is the art of and veneration of paying attention. Um, we were looking up the other day the definition of an etymology of cult, and it is veneration of and praise of a certain way of thinking, a certain way of being, or a particular person. And these two cards, or this card and the poem that goes with it, very much connect into this energy of self devotion. So I'm going to read from the card. I just realized I didn't bring the card upstairs, but that's fine. Okay, we have freedom. Hearken the light. The lunar goddess calls forth her magic. Anchoring the earth in her dreams, she makes flight possible. A ballerina flies through the air as though she had leapt off the surface of the moon. She is in free flight, unbound by gravity, the very symbol of freedom. She is surrounded by winged creatures in her magical garden, exotic birds, and a fairy. For these creatures, flight is the normal mode of movement. For the ballerina, she must escape the pull of Earth's gravity to take flight. She symbolizes the effort we must make to be free of our everyday restraints. The snake, the symbol of wisdom, reminds us that our knowledge is earthbound and freedom from gravity is only a temporary thing. The fairy beckons us into her magical realm, but she cares not if we follow. The garden is walled in and safe, and the flowers are like memories of another time, one of innocence and beauty. Only the presence of the snake keeps us anchored in physical reality. The pink rose symbolizes the innocence of our childhood visions of freedom. Freedom reminds us to keep the magic of our dreams alive in our heart and soul. The yearning to be free takes us to magical places and feeds our imagination with grand visions. These are the seeds of greatness and must be kept special and nurtured in our own inner gardens. The innocence of childhood holds sacred space for our visions. Have you kept that magical place alive and well within you? The snake reminds us of our wisdom and sensuality, the anchors within our earthbound reality. Are you honoring both aspects of your magic, or are you longing for one and discounting the other? To hold both in regard is real magic. This is your task as a conscious human. Choice. Have you chosen to free yourself from the gravity of your own life, even if just for a moment? What does the new perspective look like? Purpose. Freedom is the purpose here. How do you honor the still point between the pull of gravity and the flight of freedom? Pulled out Mary Oliver's devotions and went to page 7. And I believe we have an answer to at least a couple of the questions here. As a reminder, the questions were: have you chosen to free yourself from the gravity of your own life, even if just for a moment? What does the new perspective look like? Freedom is the purpose here. How do you honor the still point between the pull of gravity and the flight of freedom? The poem is called Storage. When I moved from one house to another, there were many things I had no room for. What does one do? I rented a storage space and filled it. Years passed. Occasionally, I went there and looked in. Nothing happened. Not a single twinge of the heart. As I grew older, the things I cared about grew fewer, but were more important. So one day, I undid the lock and called the trash man. He took everything. I felt like the little donkey when his burden is finally lifted. Things, burn them, burn them. Make a beautiful fire, more room in your heart for love, for the trees, for the birds who own nothing, the reason they can fly. We have been talking about our stories lately, the stories that we tell, the stories that we own, the stories that bind us, the stories that create density, the stories that keep our patterns in play. The stories about what our distractions mean to us, how important they are in our lives, the stories about who we would be if we set the stories down, who we would no longer be if we set it down. Maggie says, it's only after we lose everything that we're free to do anything. Chuck Palahniuk. And I think for my life and the perspective that I choose to walk and see my life through and the path I choose to walk, the lose everything is not some death of the ego. It's losing the stories. It's losing the things that we're attached to, that we're handed, that we never think about again. Like it's handed to us, and in her poem, it's taken to the storage unit. In the freedom card, it just gets poured into whatever our concept of gravity is. These things are what hold us down. These things hold me down. This density holds me down. And so often, the reason that the density holds us down is because it doesn't have a name. It was never given a name. We put it in the storage unit. We hoped we would never have to look at it again. And we are at the end point before winter, we are reaching the stillest point of the year. Trees are their strongest because they have had the ability, the courage, and the time to shed. As we round out Sagittarius season, we have a square from Neptune that is really closing out whatever beliefs that we have accumulated around our spirituality, around our life mission, around wherever the Sagittarius archetype lives on your chart. And in this clearing out, it is in essence one of the most chaotic times of year. It is very interesting to me that the god of chaos is actually the opposite sign of Sagittarius. It's Gemini, god of chaos, Mercury. And being that we explore the paradox here, we know how to hold two things at once. We begin to see more development of the story of last week's call, where we talked about Sagittarius as having this ability to just see through the nonsense, to cut through the nonsense, to cut through the story down to the refined thing. It's like the final shed of the leaves for these trees right before winter, before they have to keep alive or lose everything that they're trying to keep alive if they haven't shed it. So Sagittarius season feeling this chaotic. I mean, of course, that demonstrates to me the as above, so below nature of as above, so below, as within, so without, of a kind of, I don't know, principle for existing here, the rules of the subconscious, the way the ego understands the subconscious and all of those things. So when I look at the last line, for the birds who own nothing, the reason they can fly. And I draw back to this mention of gravity in the freedom card. I was talking to, I started working with a coach, Tanya Lopez, the functional bodybuilder. I'm obsessed. Her cueing is next level. She really emphasizes fascia and mobility and range of motion, all stuff I'm really interested in. But we were talking about the concept of gravity, and she was talking about this kind of little game to play with yourself. Like, I don't believe in gravity. I don't believe in gravity, and gravity doesn't believe in me. And continuing to like play these games. And it's sure like a mental game, but you begin to discover a kind of lightness of spirit the more you are no longer bound by the law, the rule that was being fed by your ego about who you're allowed to be, what you're allowed to do, there is more lightness of spirit, and it's more balanced with the density because we had the ability to go in and name plainly what was dense. So often we ignore the density, we put it in that storage unit and say, you know what, that really terrible situation happened, but it is what it is. It's Sagittarius season. It is what it is season, if there has ever been one. And Sagittarius is prone to bypassing some of the bigger emotional things to go for the jokey joke, and we're just going to move on from there. And when we do that, we forego our ability to make a different choice because our choice is now avoiding. Avoiding is active, it's not passive. So when we avoid the everything is fine meme, there this is fine meme comes to mind, where it's like the dog and everything's on fire and he's just sitting there, but it's like you're getting hot. Like there have been variations of that where like the dog's skin is melting and you see his little like skeleton sitting there. Avoiding is an active decision. So when we choose to put it in the storage unit, we choose to put it in the subconscious or keep it in the subconscious. We're actively avoiding, which means we are giving active energy to the thing. We're giving energy by trying not to give it energy. And isn't that so clever how you can think about not thinking and try to think your way into non-thinking? And you can't. You can't think your way into non-thinking. It is an exercise in futility to keep things on autopilot because eventually it's going to come back up and it's never really on autopilot. The energy is still being contributed to it. So, right away, I want to talk a little bit about what we might be avoiding. We have Eight of Cups reversed right out of the gate. Some people listening to this, and as always, I want to like we haven't even gotten into any kind of like meditation or anything. We're just getting right into it for a moment because I think it's really relevant that we be able to find ourselves. So, as you're listening to some of the reasons that, or some of these things that are coming up, some of these things that we're using to like, we're ignoring, um, really lean into what's right for you instead of attributing yourself to everything. Check in with yourself. If it's not your story, don't pick it up. So for some people, there is a walking away process. You needed to be or need to be walking away from something. You actively know that you need to be walking away. And if you haven't and you've decided that you're not going to, then you need to make sure that your subconscious knows, I am not walking away from this. And if you are, then Eight of Cups reversed reminds us that once we make the decision, everything's already in motion. Once we make the decision, everything is already in motion. But when we try to trick our body into this is the language that I've been using. When we try to trick our body into entering the fantasy or delusion of the mind, my mind says I'm leaving. Look at all of this preparing I'm doing. My mind says I'm doing it. The body will be able to tell the difference. The body will react, especially the emotional mind body. So if you have been particularly sensitive lately, there is something, especially an emotional story, that is not being left behind, and you know it's overdue. We also have avoiding the hermit. The Hermit is this is a Virgo card first and foremost. The Hermit is not just the solo journey. It's not just the journey on your own or the journey inward. It's about going out with no territory marked to find the truer space within. The hermit doesn't go out into the woods and walk the walking trail. The hermit's going out into the woods. We were just watching an episode of Boy Meets World where like Eric comes back and he's plays with squirrels, and he talks about he's a hermit. He went and wrote his manifesto, and he was talking about his like journey getting there, and he's like, I got rid of all of my stuff. You can see in this card We have written off all of our earthly belongings. We have only this white shroud over us, guiding us into that deep place within us. This is parts unknown. This is unmarked territory. This is going somewhere different. This is trusting that inner light to go somewhere different. Really resonate with that. We also have lovers. Also have the lovers. So this brings into play our conscious masculine, conscious feminine energy. I'm going to pull a clarifier and say 10 of swords reversed here. 10 of swords reversed. So there's a kind of self-perpetuating cycle that is going on either between you and someone else. Remember, the lovers is not just romantic. It is romantic. So don't file delete a romantic partner just because that would be an easier thing to do. If there is a way that you continue laying on the swords in your partnership, you continue actively falling on those swords. Maybe you're being too gentle on yourself, maybe you're being too hard on yourself. Whatever the message is, that you're doing it to yourself. So there is this need to access perhaps one other side of your energy. If you tend to operate heavily in your masculine, I'm going to go ahead and let you know you're not actually operating heavily in your masculine. You're just using your masculine to compensate for the overdrive of your feminine energy. So, what I mean by that is, for example, if my knee hurts, like I hurt my knee, in a few days, if I keep walking around on it, I'm going to have low back pain, hip pain. And then I'm probably going to have back pain. And then I'm going to have shoulder pain and I'm going to have neck pain. And my knee is never going to really notice that there's a problem because the rest of my body is compensating for it. So when I say that if you believe yourself to be someone who operates like, yeah, I'm totally masculine, I love to be in control, I'm always taking care of everything, I'm the person that everyone goes to for everything, you are, in fact, operating on overdrive in your feminine energy. Now, if you're someone who thinks that you're really loosey goosey and you maybe really identify with your feminine energy and you're always in that fluid flow state, you're likely not just in a constant surrender state to the universe. Surrender is your form, and you've entered the paradox. Your formlessness is now your form. There's a really interesting talk, or there's not a talk. I think it's a quote from Ram Dass I found on Ram Dass page, where he talks about Alan Watts basically like calling him out, and he's like, "You're this formlessness that you keep talking about. You're too attached to the formlessness. You're too attached to detachment." And that in itself is a structure. Attachment is a structure. So if you think that you're operating, oh, yeah, no, 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 I'm totally in touch with my feminine, I am willing to bet that you are someone who has really put your masculine energy into overdrive. If you vary your schedule at all, it probably throws you into a tailspin. Right? That's a one of the indicators. So that being said, we want to feel our capacity for going to meeting these things that we're avoiding within ourselves, that we're avoiding naming plainly. And when we go to those places, when we go to that density of, yeah, you know what? I should have left. I'm going to use the word should. I should have left. I should have done whatever it is. I should have made that hard decision. I should have faced whatever the consequences were. And I didn't. Or I'm avoiding myself, avoiding following my own mission. I'm avoiding following my own path, igniting a path that is just my own, or making things a problem because we won't stop falling down on our own swords. Whatever it is, I want to feel our capacity. I want to feel my capacity to pull myself up off those swords. I want to feel my capacity to trust myself as the hermit. I want to feel my capacity for being that trailblazer. I want to feel my capacity for making that challenging Eight of Cups decision and sticking with it, seeing it through. For me, it is, why are you afraid of being successful? Hmm. Did anyone play with the deepest fear inventory last week? Okay. So if you were going to existential kink this with a little game, deepest fear inventory, dear universe, I absolutely hate, resent, and reject being successful because I have a deep fear that I might become someone completely different. Because I have a deep fear that if I don't know that person, then I don't trust myself to become them. Because I have a deep fear that I maybe think I'm untrustworthy. Because I have a deep fear that this untrustworthiness, and you start pulling it out. Pull out the fucking story. This is what it is to confront it. This is what it is to name it plainly. Because you're not afraid of being successful. That's just a story. That's just a story. It's a really clever and convenient story because it keeps you going, oh, yeah, I've got to confront that. I've got to confront that. I've got to confront that. But that's the distraction. It's distracting you from the doing. You're in preparing, right? I'm going to confront my being afraid of success. So now I've agreed I am. I am is an energetic contract. So I am afraid of success. So why not just go ahead and say it out to the universe so the universe can hear you and say, all right, weird flex, because that's not really what's happening in your undercurrent, but like get it out, I guess. We have to get these things out. When we do the deepest fear inventory, for example, really love how she talks about it in the book, especially when you're listing other people, right? I have a deep fear that I'm going to become someone else completely. I have a deep fear that I'm not be when I become someone else completely, I'm not going to care about the people I care about in the same way right now. Right. And okay, well, I have a deep fear that this person is going to judge me for being different. No, I have a deep fear that I'm unwilling or unable to be with this person's judgment in a grounded and centered way. That's my capacity. I have a fear that I don't have that capacity. So many of these things come back to I have this fear, and it's not really a fear because as soon as you write it down, after you get your list of 20, you have to read this shit out loud. And you're going to read this stuff out loud, and a couple of days in, it's like, it's silly. This is kind of silly to be afraid. Am I really afraid? What's the sensation happening inside my body? I don't feel these sensations of fear. Why are you afraid of being successful becomes I'm going to make a declarative statement to the universe. Make a declaration so the universe can support you. Be vulnerable so the universe can support you. Dear universe, God, source, my higher self, I have a fear that I'm going to become someone I don't know. Please help me have courage to be someone I want to connect to. Show me right now how to become that person. Give me the courage to take follow through action towards becoming that person. But we don't get there without naming the density, without naming the fear, or naming that you hear all the time fear is the most toxic emotion. Fear is the most toxic emotion. But if you don't name it, if you don't acknowledge it, it goes into the avoid pile. It goes into the storage unit pile. And I'll get there when I get there. Or maybe I'll try to purge it all at once, right? I'll go to a psychedelic ceremony and hope that the ayahuasca helps me purge it. Again, reminder, the lovers. Where do you believe you're skewed? So if we are able to feel our capacity for these things, we have to get into our sensations of this is what it feels like when I hold on to my story. This is what it feels like when I hold on to something new. I hold on to a different story. So we're going to, yes, Kelsey says the subconscious then controls. And like, let's chat about that. So, what does our subconscious do? Our subconscious is the place within us that manifests and creates opportunity to create approval for things that our ego otherwise rejects, aka the shit you hate, the shit you think you hate. So, For example, if you maybe had a really challenging, I talked about this actually, I'll use this example. I talked about this on What Dog Are You Today, Maggie's podcast. And we talked about this like pervasive childhood need to have approval from my mom. She was the first person you want approval for, the mother, and the first person to deny me approval. So then I went on to have really challenging relationships with other women because I was working out. They were a perfect manifestation of this desire to seek approval and to receive rejection instead, to receive the not enoughness instead. Because what my ego was rejecting, the not enoughness, it's you have a rule, you've got to keep doing X, Y, and Z so that you can be enough for these people, so that you can get their approval. So you've got to people please, you've got to fawn, you've got to do it. What insert whatever meaning I'm making. And then I grow up and I start applying this and I have really challenging relationships with other women. I have really challenging relationships with partners. I have really challenging relationship bordering on a non-existent relationship with myself for an extended period of time. And when we don't recognize that our subconscious is recreating this pattern to give us approval of something. I'm trying to approve of something. I'm trying to approve of rejection. I'm trying to approve of doing it my own way instead of pleasing. I'm trying to approve of insert whatever it is that keeps happening. Find the bigger story in it, find the bigger pattern in it, find the more pervasive pattern rather than just the tree right in front of your face. And understand that your subconscious is on purpose, which means you on purpose are manifesting these situations, co-creating, right? We've talked plenty of times, karma is your doing. I then date the type of person that reminds me of my mom. Like, why? Our conscious mind asks the why, but the subconscious is like, I know. Like reminding, like waving her hand, like, I know exactly why we're doing this. Because we're trying to recognize with awareness that we're doing it. We're trying to increase our capacity to be with whatever the particular sensation is that we've never been with. We maybe have ignored the entire time. Our subconscious is the place from which we manifest. We in the mind, body, spirit, we've got mind, body, spirit. So spirit right here is our subconscious. I always do it in a triangle. We've got this like little delta of change, right? So on mind, these are the conscious thoughts I'm thinking. We've got body up here. These are the actions that I take or don't take. And then we have the subconscious. This is the shadow, the subconscious self. Now, these three things are not compartmentalized in that like my mind is operating like independently. Like I don't like to compartmentalize these things because it's a constant motion. But when you get to our little triangle here, the subconscious, the spirit feeds the mind. But the actions you take feed the subconscious. The actions you don't take feed the subconscious. So if your mind is telling you, I absolutely hate, resent, and reject having relationships with people who are just like my mother, but my body is doing something different, then my subconscious is like, cool, message received. You still haven't figured this one out. Send on the next one. And then you enter the next relationship, and your partner is again exactly like your mom. New shade, new variant, but still, it's mom dressed up. Our subconscious, you said our subconscious then controls. So it's like our subconscious, yes, is the part of us. It's 90% of us. It makes up more than our conscious mind does. That's why Jung says, in order to make the unconscious conscious, otherwise it rules your life and you'll call it fate. It's the stuff that just keeps happening. But when you bring what's unconscious into the conscious mind, so your ego now knows, you have to be able to be with, oh shit, I'm the one doing this. And oh shit, this really hurts that it's happening. You have to be able to be with both of those sensations. This is like the lightness of spirit is like, oh my God, I'm actually in more control. And we've got the victim mentality or the density mentality that we're still denying that we don't want to experience this, or we haven't wanted to experience it, or we don't need to experience it. So, what do? We practice both and from a place of capacity. We practice feeling both our ego self that's like, no, I do actually like want to be successful. And we practice feeling the other side of that, which is I have a deep fear that whatever is the bigger thing on the other side of whatever fear you're trying to protect with the story of, yeah, I'm afraid of success. So, whatever your both and is, whatever your wow, this feels so light, and these are the things that I'm working on. And I'm so glad that I have made I don't know, the tough decision to stick around. We've got 8 of Cups reverse. I'm so glad and proud of myself that I made the tough decision to stick around, to do it this way, to take the long way, like whatever it might be. And also I'm ready to acknowledge that I'm doing this to myself, that density. So we've got our lightness in one hand and our density in another. That is the premise that we'll be going into with this meditation. We're going to bring it back down just for a minute. Before we do that, I'm going to do a little tapping. Let's do a little EFT tapping for a moment. If you have glasses on, you're going to want to take these off just for a moment. And I will say where our tapping points are if you want to keep glasses on just for a second here. So our tapping points are going to be the crown of our head. And you're tapping just about as hard as you would if you were like, oh, excuse me, someone's in your way, like, oh, excuse me. So we're tapping here. We have our next to our eyebrows, our temples here, above our eyebrows here, above our eyes or below our eyes, right between our upper lip and the bottom of our nose, right here on your chin, under your collarbones here, the sternum here in the middle, right here to the side. If you were wearing a bra, would kind of be where your bra would be, kind of where the bottom of the armpit is, the armpit on your shirt maybe. So you're going to go through, we're going to tap, we're just going to focus on breathing normally. This is the energetic freedom technique, EFT tapping. Feel free to follow along with what I am saying and try it on, see if it fits, see if it works well for you. The aim of the meditation is to practice reaching for and acknowledging our density and reaching for and acknowledging our lightness at the same time. So our tapping will be to remind our body, our energetic meridians, that we are in fact safe to feel whatever density comes up. We are safe to feel the lightness that comes up. Begin by tapping the top of your head. I am safe to feel this density. I am safe to feel this density. Your voice is your medicine. I am safe to feel this density above your eyebrows. I am safe to feel this density. Temples. I am safe to feel this density. I am safe to feel this density. Below your eyes, I am safe to feel this density. You may notice that you're yawning or your eyes are streaming. Maybe you need to sneeze or burp or something like that. Feel free to do it. Linger if you notice any more sensation in one spot. Eye below your nose, above your mouth. I am safe to feel this density. Below your bottom lip, above your chin. I am safe to feel this density. I am safe to feel this density. Collarbones, just below. I am safe to feel this density. I am safe to feel this density. Sternum. I am safe to feel this density. Under your arm. I am safe to feel this density. And do your heels of your hands together. The heels of your hands together. I deeply love, trust, and forgive myself for all the times I believed I was incapable of feeling this density. Take a deep breath in and hold at the top. Exhale and let it go through your mouth. Take a big drink of water. Make sure you hydrate throughout the rest of the day today. EFT tapping can move a lot of energy in your body, so make sure that you're drinking enough water to help flush it out. Now we're going to get into our meditation. So find a comfortable seated position if you can. Sit crisscross. If you can't sit crisscross, that's fine. Sit in whatever way is comfortable for you. And you can imagine a kind of figure eight underneath your body, if that would be more comfortable or more accessible for you. So we're going to start with both hands on our legs, the tops of our thighs. We're going to close our eyes and we're going to begin taking normal breaths. Bring your attention to the place on your nostrils where the breath enters and exits. Begin to deepen your breath. Make a kind of furnace sound in the back of your throat with your lips closed while you exhale. The breath should fill the back of your throat as you're exhaling. Inhale through the nose. Exhale with mouth closed. Keeping your left hand on top of your thigh, flip your right hand over to be palm up on top of your thigh. Every inhale, you're making more capacity, and every exhale, you are filling it with the density you are currently feeling. Inhale to make space to increase capacity, and exhale to release the density. Again, inhale to make space. Exhale to fill that space with the density you are feeling. Any of the density that you're filling up your capacity with floats by with a specific name, acknowledge it and let it continue on its way. We're not analyzing, but we're not pretending the analytical mind does not exist. Acknowledge and send it on its way. Your belly soft on your inhale. As your breath naturally begins to settle, you'll realize that you have emptied your density. Bring all of your attention to the density in your right hand. Remember to breathe. Notice how capable you are of feeling this sensation. Flip your right palm over on top of your thigh and send this sensation into your base. If you're sitting crisscross, you can imagine this density creating your base. Density is part of life, part of gravity. The goal is not to always stay unbound from gravity, but to return, just the same as the goal is not to stay gravity, but to return to being mid-flight. And in that way, we need a sturdy base. Point to which we can return with full capability to feel and be with this density. Turn your left palm upward. Rest it back down on your thigh. Bring to mind the lightness that you feel. The lightest parts of you, of your being, of your spirit. And put that lightness into your left hand. Every breath in, creating more capacity for lightness of spirit. Every exhale, pouring that lightness into your left hand. Notice and acknowledge any differences in your breath, any differences in your feelings of capability. The analytical mind is still happening. Acknowledge and send it on its way. And you have poured all of your lightness into your left hand. Focus your attention on how it feels. Feel the sensation of your lightness, of your capacity for lightness. Isn't it interesting how lightness can create intense sensation just as much as density? Turn your left hand over on top of your thigh and bring it to your heart. Your left hand on your heart. Send the lightness of spirit into your being, into your center. This is the powerhouse that circulates your blood. You're sending lightness of spirit through your entire body. Remember to breathe. Every inhale, drawing the lightness up towards your crown, and exhale, circulating it back down. When you're ready, bring both palms to your thighs, palms up, tops of your hands and the tops of your thighs. Focus now on the density on your right hand. Shift your focus now, your energy now to your left hand. Bring all of your attention to your left hand, your lightness. Remember to breathe. Move your attention to your right hand, leaving your left hand completely. Now bring your attention to both your right and left hands at the same time. Breathe them in unison, exhale in unison. You are capable of feeling both dense and light at once. now that we can feel them both at once, we want to practice keeping the right hand's density its own, its left hand's lightness its own, and the identity and energy of both together its own. This is a practice. Breathe and feel both the individual density, the individual lightness, and the two together, what they become together. Whenever you feel complete in your practice of maintaining both the individual identities of your density and your lightness and the shared identity, when the two are brought together, you can return your palms to your thighs, bring movement to your hands, your feet. Maybe you want to roll your neck, stretch out some of the density, flutter your eyes open. My head feels very light now. It's 11:11. Interesting. All right, so we already read for the density that we've been avoiding. So now I want to call to mind the lightness that we can greet as well. The lightness that accompanies the Eight of Cups reversed is the sovereign and transmute. This accompanying our Eight of Cups reverse density, the long way around, the long journey, the staying when you needed to leave. The lightness here is that as a sovereign being, you have the ability to transmute any situation into anything that you want. You have the ability, the capability to transmute that density into something that ultimately yields a more sovereign truth from within you. To be sovereign means to remain unto yourself. The word virgin, rago, virgin is priestess sovereign unto themselves. Sovereignty is ungovernability. So there is an ungovernability. Your lightness of spirit. I even imagine like I'm bringing in the animals that are pictured, like their horns are pictured here, and you've got some like sword knife action. But we've got the animals here reminding us that sovereignty is relentless. Ungovernability will relent, or is relentless. And ungovernability, I feel, is the nature of nature. Nature is ungovernable. Nature is relentless. We have human attempts at governability for nature, but we've all seen every apocalypse movie ever and read plenty of flora and fauna poetry and Mary Oliver to know nature persists. Nature will overcome. And so our true nature, our sovereign nature, whether or not you took the long way around, whether or not you made the difficult decision to stay, your sovereign nature is going to persist. And ultimately, this situation or whatever it is going to be transmuted the same as everything else has. You are capable of meeting this moment. For the hermit, you've been struggling to follow the unbeaten path. Know that this is your soul's work. This is your soul's work. That lightness of spirit, that knowing, that density and lightness, it is all your soul work. Learning the lesson of how to learn the lesson. Oh, is already done. You've got wisdom to share, whether that be by teaching or doing, how you're showing up, where you want to show up. You have the two. Anytime you're reading tarot or looking at oracle and there are two characters, know that they always reflect one another. And so in that way, share wisdom is a reminder that there are people that need wisdom that we are hoarding by not walking that path, because there are going to be people, especially if you're an older sibling. Perhaps this is resonant, but I feel like older siblings are always going first. We're always going first. I'm the oldest daughter, and we're always going first. And I think that that is something that we carry with us into adulthood, and we end up going first a lot, and then we see people around us doing the same things. That's happened so many times with us. And we're both oldest kids. There's so many times where we do something, we, blaze a trail in a certain way, and then it's easier for everyone to follow. And if part of my soul's work is to make that path easier for other people by doing it, messing it up, getting it right, whatever it is that I do, that's the wisdom that I'm going to share. This card is particularly resonant for me. Even this morning, we were trying to get the YouTube live going and just legitimately was like not connecting. And it's very representative of a deeper pattern of being like, holy shit, I'm going to be like talking to a lot of people. I'm going to be there's going to be a lot of people I don't know. All of those deepest fear inventories. I have a deep fear that there's going to be people I don't know. I have a deep fear that people I don't know are going to do insert X, Y, and Z thing here, as if I could control that, right? Because what I really have a fear of is the sensations of being out of control of that, of sharing my wisdom and that being just out into the world. This one feels really resonant for me in particular right now. And I know for myself, I don't need any more answers. I don't need any more answers. All of the questions I have that I've asked that don't have answers yet are the right questions to not have answers yet. And the only thing, like, there's nothing left to do but to do it. And for so many of us getting ready to do something completely different, I just want to remind you or give you, I don't know, some sort of I'm with you, but it's fucking hard. It's hard to go out on your own way, do something completely different, put yourself out in a vulnerable situation. It's also really hard to not do those things. Um, I'm choosing my hard right now. And finally, if you and a partner, you and another person that you maybe have a challenging relationship with is the density that you're experiencing in your life, or you and your relationship to yourself, you and the ways that you maybe make yourself a victim to things that you've experienced or whatever it might be, whatever falling on your own swords represents to you or means to you in terms of density. I also want to remind you, Ten of Swords reversed is perhaps my favorite. I love responsibility. Big Capricorn rising girly over here. I love responsibility. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm on the swords, at least that gives me something to do. I could pull myself up. It's when I'm laying on someone else's swords or someone else's, we've got this upright, someone else's pierced you. But in reverse, you're pretty much doing that to yourself. So I love that because that means I love the phrase control your controllables. And that's something that is within my control to confront. So if you particularly resonated with the lovers and Ten of Swords, we have the Magi. And so this is a reminder that it doesn't matter how much you give someone of what they already don't want. If they're here or they're here and you're up here, you're the one causing the imbalance. And you have to be able to see through your own shit. You have to be able to see that you're the one doing it. This is a really cool pairing to me, the lovers and the pillar, because, and we've talked about this on other calls, but the lovers card is in the Rider-Waite-Smith depiction is Adam and Eve. So you've got the burning tree, you've got the snake around the tree and the apple in the tree and all of that stuff. And then you've got these snakes around this pillar. It's a reminder that right sizing your output, right sizing the energy that you give to other people is in fact in your best interest. It is in the best interest of the relationship. And you could be one of the people that's creating a rupture in the relationship simply by giving too much of yourself, over giving of yourself when you know that other people are not going to show up the way that you're showing up. And asking ourselves why we like falling on that sword, why it feels good to fall on that sword. This is less about lightness, I feel, the pillar and the magi. And it's more about being able to see through, right? The magi is the seer of illusion. We just had Neptune go direct. Um, Neptune as the seer of illusion, it's helping us see where we are overgiving or where we set up other people to overgive. Maybe we set people up to overgive, whatever it might be for you. Um, this is a reminder that the only thing you have to do is just right size your energy and understand that you over giving of your energy is that 10 of swords reversed. Otherwise, this is the lightness of spirit. This is the self-contained paradox. All things are good. This is the reminder that this lightness and this density are actually, if you resonated with the lovers, I want to really call you in here. If you resonated with this card, this is a reminder that everything is actually fine. And when things aren't fine, someone, both of the people involved, all of the people involved, whatever your situation is, when it's not fine, it's really not fine. But the reason it's not fine is because there's a skew here. Something is showing up in an over or under capacity. And the most compassionate thing we can do is see through the illusion of when we're over or under giving, when we are relying on the other to be what upholds us also. The pillars are a reliance. So if one half of the pillar is in this 10 of swords position, again, it's not going to be very fortified. There are so many different ways that this message is coming through. So I'm going to pull some clarifying cards to get a couple of different scenarios that anyone might be resonating with here. Here because I think that these patterns are longer held patterns of overgiving or over relying. Because I want to be clear, giving and relying are not inherently bad. Giving and relying aren't inherently bad things. Just the same as the sword is not inherently harmful in the tarot deck. Giving and connecting and going above and beyond, those are things that are valued time and place. So I want to see if there are any specific long held patterns that are coming through. We have let go and go on an adventure. So a long held pattern of a challenge of letting go. All the gut health girlies, this one's probably you. I know it resonates for me. So, one of the scenarios, one of the long held patterns in which this might be cropping up in your conscious relationship, but it's got roots elsewhere, is an inability to let go. And this is a reminder that it is now time to let go of all that no longer serves you. Ugh, gag me. I hate that sentence so much. I'm going to talk about it in a second. It is now time to let go of all that no longer serves you. Free the pent up energy inside you and imagine it leaving your body as you breathe deeply. Forgive disappointments and pain. Do not allow bitterness in. Let go of control and allow for that which needs to die so that you may blossom once more. So, letting go of what no longer serves you is a nothing salad sandwich of words put together, and it means nothing and it does nothing. So when we say let go of all that no longer serves you, we're specifically talking about a pattern of overgiving. So find the tangible ways. I'm talking audit yourself. Write down what are ways I overgive and be honest with yourself. Be honest ways you overgive to yourself, right? Maybe you I don't know, you always plan your food and then you end up like having 16 snacks at bedtime or something like that. Like that's overgiving to yourself. Where do you overgive to others? Where do you give a lot and you're like, holy shit, no one's showing up like that? Like, this is what we're letting go of. And go on an adventure. We have another scenario. Perhaps this is a bit of escapism, using relationships as escapism. The Magi does indicate fantasy. That's been a word that's been in my peripheral. There is an inclination to escape when what is the word I'm looking for? When sensation is high. So if escapism is part of your story, it says, today's the day to try something new, explore just for fun and be a bit more daring. Practice living in the moment, do something spontaneous, be okay with not having anything or everything planned. Don't let apprehension keep you from your new adventure. That feeling will fade, but the wonder that is to be found surely will not. And that's like the nice little like gauzy thing that your subconscious is telling you, the free pass you keep giving yourself. No, I need a little more novelty before I get in here. So again, like I said, escapism. This is not a card that's giving us direction. This is a card that's revealing a pattern. This is a pattern of escapism, a pattern of saying, you know what if this really resonates for me. What if I just keep changing the schedule? What if I just keep changing things? What if I make all of these last minute changes and I'll just live in the moment? I'll, fly by the seat of my pants, all of that shit. It does not work well. It keeps us falling on our swords. So audit and address specific ways. Like not being able to name these things is the reason that it will keep coming up. So once you can audit and address them, um, you're more easily able to recognize them. This is where you want to bring in that tenderness is what you do in public, justice is what you do, or tenderness is what you do in private, justice is what you do for yourself in public. We have the star and justice that came out a moment ago, and I was like, this is not relevant to the chat yet. It's here. So this is a reminder for all of these. If you identified with Eight of Cups reversed, if you identified with the Hermit, you identified with the Lovers and Ten of Swords, and you are looking to navigate any of these, this is a reminder that being soft with yourself, creating structures that support your softness, and then actually leaning into them, participating in them, showing up for them because they create a happier life is how you do yourself justice in your everyday life. So we need to stop looking for a good reason why, because there is no good reason why. There's no good reason why to do any of this. By the way, everything we just talked about, there's no good reason to do it. Fuck it all, right? There's no good reason. But there's also no good reason not to. There's no good reason not to. So now that there's no good reason for you to do it and no good reason for you not to do it, you're free to do whatever the hell you want to do, what you really want to do, what you're really intrinsically motivated to do. And the ways that you find that is getting into your capacity. When you're beyond capacity, you go into your strategies, you go into your limbic system. When you're within capacity, you can make these decisions so that when you're out of your capacity, you can show up more in alignment with your values. So these things are a reminder to show up for our structure. There is no one who's going to do it for us. We must be soft with ourselves in a way that ultimately cultivates resiliency or cultivates sturdiness, cultivates the ability to be with that density. And we must be light enough in our justice that we're not, setting a hand down on the scale. This is the paradox. If there are any messages at the bottom of the deck, we'll send this on our way. We have a reminder that before liberation feels like freedom, it feels like destruction. I felt like the little donkey when his burden is finally lifted. Things Burn them, burn them. Make a beautiful fire. More room in your heart for love, for the trees, for the birds who own nothing, the reason they can fly. We also have the explorer reminding us that what our inner compass points toward is our own choosing. And four of petals reverse, meaning or showing us that even though things will feel a little unstable, it's because you're upending the way things have been going thus far, and you are more than capable of trusting yourself. We have trust supporting this. You're more than capable of trusting yourself in this moment of upending how things have been. And you need to begin asking yourself, what if things go better than expected? What if things go better than expected? What if I have all of the tools I need at my disposal already? I don't need to get anything else. I don't need to make a new structure. I just need to do the damn thing. And I need to bring that lightness of spirit with me. What if that was it? What if I needed to make it? Oh, that is all for today. So, our takeaways here are there's nothing to it but to do it and to be tender with yourself in a way that cultivates resiliency and sturdy with yourself in a way that allows for softness, to follow the intuitive nudge before you have the time for fear and self doubt to creep in. And when fear and self doubt do creep in, know that you are more than capable of being with those things. You are more than capable of acting, even with that density in your life. In fact, you've been doing it all along. And now it's a choice to act in the direction that we seek. So, thank you.